In a recent ESPN article titled Joel Embiid Sees You, we get a deep dive and a behind-the-scenes look into Joel Embiid's history with the Philadelphia 76ers, from his ongoing issues with the medical staff and the organization, from his fallouts with certain players and superstars that he's played with in the past in Philadelphia, and more importantly, the family trauma and the personal trauma that he has had to endure since being in Philadelphia, understanding behind the scenes that he has not gotten the full support of the organization, from the medical staff to ownership to management of the front office, you name it. This was such a beautifully well-written article, and I am going to botch the name of this journalist, but I have to give him some credit, so I apologize for mispronouncing your name ahead of time, by Doton Akintoye. If, like I said, I mispronounced that, I apologize, but I urge every single one of you right here, right now, today, to take 30 minutes out of your day, whatever it takes for you to go and read that article, and that's what I want to discuss with you guys here today, because this is a form of art. This article was so well put together. It was so meticulous. It was so well received, I think, by the majority of the public. And there's two things that I want to say before I start reading certain pieces of this article to you guys that really struck me and that I really want to talk about is, first of all, not only do I want to continue to give this sports columnist and this journalist praise for the work that he did, because it is a work of art in order to compel and to write a story with such detail and precision as he did and he displayed. And like I said, it was well received. But I think secondly, and more importantly, we as an NBA fans, and me in the media as well, who has been a credentialed reporter with the Magic for the last 2 seasons, working alongside the Magic, as somebody like myself who is not only a fan of the game, but like I said, has been a media member, I have been in these rooms, I've been in these interviews with these coaches, with these players, with these executives, etc. And there is a very fine line that we should not cross. And yes, I have a different perspective on it as somebody that has been front and center with these people, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we as fans, including myself at times, are way too critical when we don't know the whole story. We don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes. And the thing that I want to urge for us to take away from this article and to move forward with when it comes to the way we antagonize certain players, the way that we harp on them, and the amount of pressure that these people have, they're still human. We're still human at the very end of the day, and Joel Embiid displayed that vulnerability that is, I think, like I said, being well documented and well received by the public, because oftentimes as fans, as media, we can be too harsh. We can be too overly critical of these people who are still human beings with feelings, with that level of vulnerability. And at the end of the day, we all have things that we go through in life, and we just don't know the full story. And this was just another example that we need to be better about the way that we talk about athletes, by the way that we treat others, we hold others accountable. And I just wanted to say that first and foremost, because I think it is very pretty. I don't have a direct script or flow with this video. I really don't even want to edit it much. I just want to talk about it with you guys. That's why I'm talking slow. That's why I'm trying to formulate my thoughts. And I took a couple of screenshots that I want to share with you guys and read with you guys from this. And let's go ahead and talk about probably one of the most sad things that is well documented and scripted within this article is the unfortunate passing of Joel Embiid's younger brother, who was 13 years old when he got hit by a car and tragically died. And this was right, I believe, after Joel Embiid had been drafted, right, in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. And this is all off the top of my head. So let me go ahead and read this first piece with you guys. So Embiid hasn't stopped blaming himself for leaving his brother in Cameroon to play basketball in 2011. Franciscos Nyam, one of his agents in 2014, called Embiid the night Arthur died. He said the first thing Embiid managed to say after sobbing was, "That's my fault. I'm a piece of you-know-what." Embiid's family had planned to be together on draft night in 2014, but after Embiid's foot surgery, doctors told him not to fly. He remained in Los Angeles at his agent's home while Arthur stayed with his family friends on the East Coast before returning to Cameroon. The accident happened nearly 4 months later. The brothers hadn't seen each other in 3 years. It's never going to change, Embiid says, all but whispering, "I still feel it." And to that point, not only is that something just unbelievably tragic that was such an adjustment for Joel Embiid or for any human being to make. To think about the fact that he was a young kid who didn't start playing basketball until the age of 16, moved to a completely different country with different cultural norms, didn't speak the language, was still refining his basketball skill set, and had a difficult time making friends, growing up, being a young adolescent who was just trying to fit in, who was just trying to find his way. From Montverde to the University of Kansas to being drafted to all of these things happening to leaving his family, it is hard enough for any individual to have all of that kind of change, especially at such a young age. And then for him to tragically have his brother pass away like that, and then to hold himself accountable for that is just, it's so hard as an individual to really think about what that person is going through. And that's why we need to continue to have empathy. And to that point, when you bring up something that is so hard for any individual to have to deal with, the passing of a loved one, especially a young loved one who died just so tragically, Marcus Hayes, one of the staff editorials for the Philadelphia Inquirer, I don't know if he still works for the Philadelphia Inquirer, even though I know he apologized later. I believe it was in October of 2024 when he had written that article in just such a disgusting, disheartening, distasteful way, calling out Joel Embiid for his lack of production or his willingness to want to play the game, despite the fact that he used his brother's death as a way to personally attack Joel Embiid. We all know the situation about Embiid then, shoving the reporter afterwards once they came face to face. Embiid served that 3-game suspension. And let me read to you guys, for you guys that forget, what Marcus Hayes said, because this is disgusting. Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son Arthur as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to be great, to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now in his 11th season, he consistently has been poor in condition. This poor conditioning apparently seems to have delayed his debut this season. Embiid won't play in Wednesday's opener or the next 2 games. What an absolutely disgusting way to come after Joel Embiid, or for any player, or for any human being for that matter. Really? Calling out Joel Embiid's absentees because of the death of his younger brother, despite the fact that it was years ago. Who cares? That is so disgusting. It's distasteful, and I can't say it enough. And I'm so glad that Marcus Hayes does not get the respect from the city of Philadelphia and the fans that he once had. That level of credibility that he probably once had gets thrown out the window. And I'm not going to sit here and act as if me, who's been a journalist and continues to still be outside of the camera, hasn't made mistakes in the journalism world. We all have. Every journalist has. Every human makes mistakes, especially in your career. But there's a very fine line between being a journalist who's trying to be blunt and honest and speak the truth, and then coming for a man, calling him out of his name, and attacking his family personally. It's disgusting. But I digress. Let's continue to move forward. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Embiid and just some of the injury history and how the organization continued to look at him. We know Embiid throughout the beginning stages of his career really was never healthy, right? Consistently rehabbing from foot injuries, just multiple injuries throughout his career. This is something he still deals with, and that level of criticism. But let me read this part. Embiid and the 76ers waited 2 years for his foot to heal. Reports at the time claimed that he hadn't been taking his rehab and nutrition seriously. His 3rd year in the league, but first on the court, was cut short by a meniscus tear in the same left knee that troubles him now. A couple of weeks after the 76ers shut him down that season, he jumped on stage at a Meek Mill show, ripped off his shirt, and danced to the sound of cheers. The 76ers president of basketball operations at the time, Brian Colangelo, scolded Embiid publicly. Embiid had crossed a line perception-wise, Colangelo said. The following season, 2017-18, he was recorded eating a hamburger courtside, God forbid, while having his foot rubbed by a trainer before a game. An early interaction of the Embiid discourse emerged. Joel's lazy, and he doesn't care. And that kind of perception from an organization, from the people that are supposed to support you the most, is what is so wrong and bad about this. Has Embiid been perfect? No. But is the perception around him just this absolute negative connotation that he's lazy, he doesn't care, he doesn't take care of his body, just all of these different things? He never got the support from the people, because think about it, to tie it back to the point with his brother. passing away. He's depressed. Let's call it what it is. He's a young man trying to figure all of this out, and he's depressed. He's going through injuries. His body's giving out on him. He's trying to give his everything to the city, to the organization, and he's not getting the support from the medical staff, from the organization, from the fans, from nobody. From nobody. And to that point, behind the scenes, Embiid was in a crisis. He was crushed under the grief of his brother's death, living alone at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Philadelphia, as if he didn't expect to be around for long. He played video games, ate poorly, and hardly slept. His foot wasn't healing. He couldn't play basketball. Rumors spread that his weight rose to nearly 300 pounds. He contemplated quitting. He was hanging on by a thread, one friend says. His relationship with the 76ers unraveled. Embiid believed something was wrong with his injury, but the team brushed it off as laziness, several sources told me. Frustrated, he quit showing up to rehab and training and stopped communicating with the team. I had to start being an asshole, Embiid says. Whatever they asked me to do, I was like, I'm not doing it. The 76ers, unsure what to do, responded by repeatedly fining him. Embiid tells me he stopped keeping track of how much he was fined that year after the amount reached $300,000. It's worth it, Embiid remembers thinking. They're not listening to me, and I'm not going to keep putting my body at risk. Think about that. An organization is supposed to have the best interest in mind for not only their players, but for their star player especially. And they showed nothing. They didn't do that for him. This shows incompetence. This shows how dysfunctional that organization is from top to bottom. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but let's get back to the point of the organization just having an absolutely terrible mindset and not a good culture in the support of Joel Embiid. And then it states, things got so bad that Martin drew up a confidential survey for members of the performance department. They were asked to answer multiple choice questions about several players, including Embiid. Mind you, this is all behind the scenes. Do you think that this guy will ever be an MVP, an all-star, a starter on a championship team, a rotation player? Do you think he'll end up in Europe? The results were dismaying. Nobody believed in Joel, Martin tells me. They weren't just into him. Martin was convinced Embiid would never be able to heal in an environment that was so hostile. He decided to go to the Heineke and owner Josh Harris and asked to take Embiid out of the country to Aspeter, an orthopedic and sports medicine hospital in Qatar. After some resistance, the team relented. So now this portion of the article gets really into how Embiid is perceiving the negativity and the criticism around him. He said, what if I did this and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to chill all season, coast, and average 25 or 20. And in the playoffs, I go average 30. Would that make me look great? Probably. If I went from averaging 23 to 30, a playoff riser, oh my God, Joel Jordan, whatever. The Brooklyn series 2 years ago is a perfect example. Double me everywhere, half court. As soon as I had the ball, that coach was like, go get it. And guess what? I was fine with it because we kicked the ball out, we made shots, and we won. But guess what it did? It lowered the stats. So if that's the narrative that's out there, I'm okay with that because I know I'm going to go through and I know what's going on. And no one is in my body to understand what I'm going through. And the perception is Joel is talented but doesn't have the extra intangible stuff that it takes to lead, like people say about Kevin Durant. No one is a winner until they've done it. I'm fine with that narrative because I haven't done it. Charles Barkley, great player, right? But he never won. Allen Iverson never won. But that doesn't mean that they weren't great. They were amazing. Everybody leads in his own way. I lead on the court, Embiid continues. Over the years, you also grow and you learn a lot. If you ask my teammates now, they'll tell you a way different story than my teammates a couple of years ago because years ago, I was nowhere to be found. Why? I ask. I don't know, he says, briefly leaving the battle against his critics to look inward. I think it goes back to how I was raised. I don't want to say lonely but I came to the States, I was alone. I was always taught myself not to trust anybody. And the very last thing I will say is just his fallout with the teammates. Would talk about James Harden. No one knows this, but even James Harden is not talking to me, Embiid tells me. That's the part I don't like about being the guy, because it puts you in the middle of those situations. Because if you ask James, he probably believes I had something to do with him not being here. And I'm just like, I won the scoring title. You won the assist title. We had a pick and roll that was unstoppable. It hurts when you feel like you haven't done anything wrong, he continues. When you think you have a relationship like that with somebody, you lose a lot. This is all without even mentioning the Tyrese Maxey situation, calling out Joel Embiid and saying that his morale and his lack of leadership is affecting the team. He's showing up late to team meetings, all of these different things. He's supposed to be representative of the face of the franchise. And guess what? That information got out. And guess what? That player's still in that locker room. I am so disgusted, and my heart aches for Joel Embiid. I think all of our hearts should ache for Joel Embiid. I know a majority of this video was spent recapping some of the article. There is still so much context that needs to be fully delivered that I want you guys to go read for yourselves if you're interested. My main takeaway with this is that we should not be, under any circumstances, coming for a player individually. When we talk basketball, fine, it's just basketball. But let's try to be conscious. Let's try to be more aware of the kind of conversations that we're having, especially when it comes to these people that you're not talking to face to face. You don't know these people personally, and we don't know anything about their personal lives. They go through real shit just like me and you do every single day. And that's what I'm trying to take away from this article. That's what I'm trying to take away and preach to you guys, that even us in the media, who I'm no longer in that space, but I was in that space and I've been in that space. And I've talked to Nick Nurse. I've talked to these coaches and these players and these other executives. And yeah, I've definitely been at fault too before, and I've learned from it. I've grown to be better from it, and I would never, ever call a man out by his name. I would never attack him personally. I would never call out his family. I would never do any of that because I know it's unethical and it's distasteful. But I've spoken long enough. I've said really the things that I need to say. The Philadelphia 76ers are pathetic for the way that they've mishandled, they've mistreated, they have almost demonized Joel Embiid to make him the problem, to make him the one who is wrong in this situation, when it's really the organization. It's really ownership, and it starts from the top down. It's just sad. And the 76ers, be better, do better. NBA fans, including myself, let's be better, let's be more conscious, let's be more aware. And Joel Embiid, you know, my heart goes out to you. I'm sure everybody else out there, our heart goes out to you, and let's just be better, you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to be in the process of moving these next couple of days, so if I'm not as active, I apologize. But thank you so much for watching. Please go read that article. And as always, I will catch you on the next one.